This is a Unity Macroverse audiobook presenting Ascension Part 1. Education Guild, East Lansing Education Hub, UNESCO.
It felt safe, a warm liquid embrace like the feeling of security. It felt right. He smiled, he knew he was safe, he was aware. He moved within the water, and each movement, like physics, elicited another counteractive force. It pushed him back slightly, warmly and safely. He didn't know where he was, but he knew wherever that was, he was there. All the thoughts that occupied his mind were not there. The neurons that were firing within the expanded consciousness were not there. His mind was clear, with no deluge of information, clean and calm. No thoughts were there, nothing, just the feeling of warmth and safety. He now felt he was floating within his water refuge, doing absolutely nothing.
Justin, can you hear me?
He heard the whisper in his water, but refused to acknowledge the prompt. He floated. He heard further mumbling beyond his watery embrace. His mind was still blank, devoid of any intrusive thoughts. He had learned to control that through his training and his evolved mental state. The Guild had extracted this capability from him as soon as he was detected during the planned genetic selection process. No thoughts, safe and warm. He will awake when he needs to. He has reached the point of exercising more independence over his self. This was beyond the Guild. They could only do so within the limits of quantum intrusion, suggestions, prompting, and possibly utilising external catalysts to amplify their internal capabilities. Everything else was the incredible evolution of Justin's neural pathways. It was something the Guild had been anticipating decades ago. However, anticipating and engaging something beyond their physical understanding was a work in progress. Centuries of misplaced focus on the existing human genetic makeup were partly responsible for the discriminatory practices that arose during the late 20th to the 21st centuries. It was the usual human characteristic of employing the me-centric on something they do not understand or refuse to. Terminology like neurodiverse or the spectrum was so prevalent that the mismatch between what these evolved humans and the understanding and engaging them by the current lower human evolutionary species was responsible for holding back what was possible for humanity to expand.
Shall I try again, Mr. Pang?
Fatima Sutirat was concerned with Justin. He was still deep in his sleep. She was the counsellor assigned to Justin while they were preparing for their trip to the lunar labs. She had taken Justin through the training regime for the anticipated work at Luna, but was finding it difficult to gauge his reaction to her plan. He had just ignored all her efforts. It felt to her like she was continually starting from zero daily. Other counsellors at the Education Guild in East Lansing would have just given up, but she was adamant to carry through her assigned task.
No, Fatima. Give him some independence to decide. He will join us when he is ready. Come, let us prepare for this new batch of children that will be arriving soon. I hear there are a few Justins in there. Leave Justin and join me in the reception hall.
Fatima nodded and left Justin's room. Somehow Justin knew he was alone again, even though he was in his state. They would call it sleep or a dream. But Justin and his other brothers and sisters are well versed in what they are. It is safe and gives them time to prepare for the processes of the day. To them, time is a function of observable processes, from as tiny as quantum-sized events to massive universe-scale processes. This is their understanding of time, They follow their processes, not time, which are human constructs. They engage and decide to be involved with the human environment when their processes demand it, not what society requires. This understanding of time was only postulated during the mid-21st century. Even with that understanding, translating it into human interaction would require other disciplines from the other United Nations of Earth establishments. It was about an hour after Fatima and Pang left. Justin's processes were now nearly complete, and soon he would enter into another, to enable him to exit his water. This was his routine. A process ends and another begins. His physical being is less important than the processes that he undertakes for his mind. His natural affinity to allow processes to dictate his life specifically is also prevalent in all the other individuals like him. It is one of the many misalignments of intentions with human interactions which have been made but still fall short of a total understanding of their being. Justin's usual morning process begins, however, later than usual due to the prolonged process of his water period. The movement of particles within his neurons commences its activity in a process that would culminate in Justin sitting upright and awake. The process is heavily influenced by others who work in concert or end before this begins. It is a usual process that occurs with Justin, however, the processes would increase as Justin engages other catalysts from his environment, either as a consequence of prompts from the guild or other natural occurrences. Instruction sets are fired to his neuron receptors, engaging his other physiological engines in his body, and processes begin, sometimes adding on to a process already in motion, while others are new. He slowly sits up. His ocular receptors are primed to receive light, and other instruction sets begin to fire up as other process commences. It takes a shorter process than a light beam travelling along the width of the hair. An attosecond is what the human science community measures it in. A bit confusing, especially with the human obsession to gauge and measure everything. Justin slowly opens his eyelids as the rush of photons travels through his eyes into the receptors at the base of his retina. To Justin's sensory receptors, what is received is all new until it travels to his brain, where familiar categories are matched, and the process of translating them into useful information is then given to Justin. The organolight emitters, coupled with AI management, allow for a smooth transition into Justin's expected environment. These are continually updated and adjusted for the occupant of the bedroom at East Lansing by the AI program. Justin adjusts himself on the side of his bed and a section of his room wall parts and opens up the view to the lush woodlands that border the guild. This was the delivery of the AI's process as it received Justin's quantum prompt. The trees provide much-needed stimulus to Justin's other processes, which are currently occurring and about to begin. He knows these are just projections from the real physical trees outside, but he doesn't mind, as his receptors accept the prompts without any fuss. He was silent as his body adjusted to his planned processes today, and the tree prompt gave him the required chemical infusion generated throughout his body, including his brain. Justin was ready. His process for interaction with his environment has commenced. He knows that other brothers and sisters have just arrived, and he has broadcast his intention to join them. However, physical needs are a requirement before he proceeds to the hall. The Guild's internal transport tubes, or trains at East Lansing, were well regarded in the UNE. It was efficient and non-intrusive. There were no constructs built that declared this was a transport tube. The designers and engineers, along with the worker AI, ensured that it was seamless within the main structure of the massive domes. The multiple domes were divided into departments or sections based on the administrative management of the Guild. These tubes connected the domes, but the view from above hardly showed any such connectivity between them. Justin would be making the trip which he enjoyed. It was similar to the comfort and safety he felt in his water. Cocooned inside the tube, it whisks its passengers silently from one destination to another. Justin took a short walk to one of the vestibules, which had access to the tube imprinted into the AI that had control over the service. There was hardly any waiting period, and the vestibule gave way to a smooth panel that slid effortlessly aside to allow Justin to enter. His seat was already waiting for him inside the tube, and other individuals were sitting in their seats, waiting for the tube to continue its journey forward. The sight of a teen on his own entering the tube was commonplace here. There were many in the population, but only a small percentage had Justin's profile, and its percentage was growing. There were many changes made to the East Lansing facility to cater to this, but the involvement of AI to understand and engage them became an important need. There were rumblings in the UNE about limiting the usage of AI within the organization. But for the Guild, an exception was made, as the importance of communicating and understanding these evolved humans became a priority. Justin's seat was now covered with a heads-up display circling his head, as environmental prompts were fed to him. This was a result of the AI receiving the required input directly from Justin. It was a normal sight at the Guild for this, but would have caused a sensation if it had been seen elsewhere. The tube was fast approaching the main dome, where the hall was situated. Justin had expanded his welcome to this new group, and he was eager to meet them.
Mr. Pang, Justin is on his way.
Excellent. They will need someone who can understand them.
Sir, a few were already asking for him.
Pang turned to face Fatima, with a slightly bemused look replete with a raised eyebrow.
Asked for him?
Fatima could only nod as the hall was full of counsellors and new arrivals, mingling and trying to organise as best they could to escort them to their assigned dormitories. It was controlled chaos, but without the noise.
Yes, it seems that they are aware that he will be here to greet them. They have refused to move until Justin arrives.
How interesting. Justin's ETA?
Another 5 minutes.
Please inform the counsellors to give way to Justin as soon as he arrives. Do it slowly, please.
Fatima left Pang and proceeded to communicate the instructions. It was 5 minutes, and all the children stood up quietly in unison. They turned their heads in the direction of the transport tube stop. Justin walked in on cue. He slowly walked to the nearest child, with both hands clasped behind his back. In his mind, he could hear them talking. He could understand what they were thinking. The voices in his head grew louder as he approached one of them.
Why are we here? Where are my parents? Why have they left me here? Have they abandoned me? Do they not want me anymore?
It was a young girl, barely 10 years old. She was in a dress, wrinkled as though she had tried to pull it off at some point. Her hair was tied in twin ponytail that were not done well and looked as though she struggled to undo the ties. Her eyes had tears welling up, as Justin could see she was struggling to understand why she was brought here. She was not frightened, but Justin felt anger from her. He had to stop and embrace her emotions, not physically, but communicate correctly with her to ensure that she understood, that her friends are many here, and she could learn to share.
Hello? You are here to meet new friends like me. Do not be concerned with the adults, they do not understand us, but it's all right, we will make many friends here.
He extended one of his hands out, and she rushed to grasp and squeezed it.
I am Sunitha. That is what my parents call me.
Her thoughts came into Justin's mind.
I am Justin. My parents call me that, and I agreed to the choice. Learn to accept Sunitha.
She squeezed Justin's hand once again and let it go. She moved back, found her seat, and looked content. Justin continued walking around the hall, receiving and answering the questions that he was given. He continued with this for almost an hour. The hall was silent, even with the same number of children. The confusion and uneasiness had been quelled by Justin alone.
What is Justin doing? Do we go in now?
The young counselor asked Fatima, who merely extended her left hand outwards. Waist high with palm facing down, she made a short sweeping movement with her hand to relay to her young counselor not to interfere with Justin.
Justin is doing something which we cannot.
Fatima whispered. She looked at Justin and thought to herself how the Guild had misunderstood them all. How the Guild and so many other institutions of humanity had mistakenly assumed that they were inferior and had to be managed. She had feelings of guilt every time she met Justin. It was very intense during her early interactions with him, but she learned to adapt. Pang had assisted her throughout her engagement and is beginning to understand that it was the Guild, meaning humanity, had to learn and adapt what we could to prepare us for this, the incredible population growth of Justin and his friends. It fueled discussions amongst the top echelons at the Guild on the inevitability of evolution jumping ahead instead of the slow progression seen throughout human history.
My ability to create makes singularity irrelevant. The ability to control AI is and will never be beyond the grasp of humanity. We will prevail, and I shall lead the way. Dr. Malik Rodriguez, Symposium on Human AI Interconnectedness, Canton Hub.
The much-awaited singularity, which humanity has been discussing in earnest since the advent of AI into society, is now present. It had begun to gain momentum as the ability of AI systems increased, and humans had difficulty coping with the enormous capability. There were efforts carried out to identify the parameters required in humans to continue coexisting with this increase. The conclusion was far from satisfactory in that human augmentation would be the only available solution to this. Early experiments were conducted with human subjects, but eventually began generational projects where children with some potential were selected with the parents' consent for augmentation experiments. These were insertions of chips to assist the brain's neural processing capability. It failed after numerous test subjects showed adverse reactions well into their adulthood. One of them was Justin's mother. The experiment failed, and the Guild had to abandon it. there was a short lull in the Singularity program until the Guild, notably Mr. Pang and his team, who had been working on Justin, made public their initiative, which eventually gained traction. Other studies were also added to his initiative. His program eventually became the lead in the UNE's Singularity push. Justin became their most valued member in the program. Justin was now back to his preferred physical space, an alcove overlooking the woods around East Lansing. He was unusually quiet today, unlike his usual gregarious self. He kept to himself all day, and whenever prompted by the counsellors, he would just stare at them blankly. There was no interaction. Fatima eventually issued an instruction that Justin was not to be disturbed today. She believed that the engagement of this new batch had somehow affected him. They left him alone today, but the AI of the facility would provide the needed companionship if he wanted it. He was comfortably seated in his favourite chair, which was given to him by another senior counsellor, Bob Z, whom he had met when he came to the Guild with his mother before. He had allowed Justin to use the chair after spending time with him during his mother's recovery. In those days, the visits always ended with the family leaving for home, but eventually his family found the commute was taking too much time and opted to allow the Guild to take in Justin as a resident. There was an adjustment period when his family was also staying, but eventually, as he got older and more independent, he stayed here by himself with the weekly visits by his parents, which eventually became monthly and now every quarter. They had assumed that Justin was comfortable with the arrangements, but assumptions operating on human understanding of something they did not know were damaging to the ones left behind. Justin never yielded any indication, not because he did not feel affected, but emotions for him and his friends operate differently. This was the usual catalyst for many decisions made on their behalf without understanding them. Hence many failures and provision of comfort when none was required. The Guild had built a massive repository of the many different characters and interactive states of their subjects. They had released AI programs to match and classify the different states, but they were far from complete. It seems they had taken a note out of quantum mechanics through the observer effect, where reality collapses into a definite state upon measurement. Meaning if you engage them, their reality changes, hence measuring or putting a quantifiable tag on their output is not that straightforward, and at the same time, superposition takes over, it changes its state, and all this within the quantum realm, in their minds.
The Quantum Observer role encapsulates the many different facets of the Sentinels, apart from their data-gathering activity in specific locations throughout the solar system. Specialist Lalitha Devi Dalan, Key Panelist, Scientific Conference on the Sentinels, Lunar Research Laboratory.
Justin was not successful in isolating his emotions after his interactions with Sunitha. He was concerned that she was going through what he had gone through before with his family. The immense confusion he experienced as his parents left him in East Lansing was somehow reduced by the incremental detachment from them. Sunitha was abrupt. Her anger was palpable. He knew he had to reach out and help her manage this. Justin knew that the counsellor assigned to her would be ineffective. The damage to Sunitha, if not resolved, could be disastrous to her development. Justin had to act, and he had to do it himself. He reached out to Sunitha, who was in her dormitory with her other friends. She had spent her day absorbing all she could from the amount of available data, especially from her counsellor. It took her a while to identify and assign these data to character matches and their behavior outcomes. She was still young and did not have sufficient observable outcomes from the data she was compiling. The fear, if not guided, would be a flawed understanding of communication. This had been the bane of interactions with them. Misunderstanding of intent and assumed solutions to address what was seen to be required assistance. In most cases, it wasn't even assistance. It was something else. Resources deployed on the assumed solution would be wasted.
Hi, Sunitha. It's Justin. Can you communicate, or are you busy right now?
His communication was done without his physical presence,
I am not doing anything, Justin.
came the response. She felt cheerful. Her feelings were sent to Justin as a way to communicate that whatever she was experiencing before was not affecting her anymore. It didn't satisfy Justin. He probed further. He knew he could elicit more from her, but was careful not to be too overzealous.
I am happy that you have adjusted and saw the need to accept.
She was quiet. It felt like a long time before she responded.
Yes, I am adjusting to my stay without my parents. I understand now.
Justin picked up her dissent from the construction of her response, and he felt a certain flow of particles that were not supposed to be behaving the way it is supposed to when there is truthfulness and honesty required. He knew she wanted to relay more to him.
I will come,
Was Justin's short answer.
How are the new batch behaving?
Pang entered the work area of his counsellors, deep within the lower levels of the dome, where banks of monitors were providing feeds on every child from this new batch. They had to be monitored, even though the UNE had discouraged the heavy use of surveillance on them. They had recommended understanding their behaviour patterns and providing support rather than intervening to change their intrinsic pattern of behaviour to enable easier engagements. Unfortunately, the Guild had refused to accept the recommendation and decided to pursue the augmentation route. They were adamant that they could yield better results. Singularity for them should be the ability to utilise technology and humanity with augmentations providing the bridge. They had harboured hopes that the additional tech could be deployed for all humans, including the newly evolved groups. The Guild pursued this way, except for Pang and his team. They believed that with the help of Justin and his brethren, they could begin to identify and catalogue the patterns. The ultimate objective would be to provide meaningful support to them as the singularity approaches.
Not as we expected. Many had difficulty in acceptance.
Did Justin assist?
Yes, he did. He had a connection with one of the younger children. I believe he has been constantly engaging her. She showed some improvements, but we think Justin is not convinced.
Justin had been the one resource Pang and his team had depended on to provide the necessary insights. His accuracy in reading behavioural patterns from all of them did not slip. His updates and sharing of his findings with Pang were invaluable.
We will need him to download his reasoning to us, but only if he is ready and agreeable. We want clean data. You understand what I am saying, Fatima?
She nodded in agreement. She had something else to update Pang. She looked anxious and decided to relay the information, even though she knew Pang would not be too pleased. She proceeded nonetheless.
Sir, I have been receiving requests for information regarding Justin's progress.
Progress? They think there is an end to this, an experiment. Who asked for this?
Pang, surprised by this sudden interest in Justin, especially after the non-event episode during the Sentinel crisis.
We received this request multiple times in the past week, but did not respond due to the incompleteness of the transmission.
Meaning?
Security sweep couldn't determine the source.
How is that possible? Relay stations, can you not trace them? Return communications.
Pang was intrigued. He wanted more information.
Nothing conclusive. Security cannot determine the source, but the return communications are active. It is strange. We have sent several messages to seek identification and clarification, but they were simply ignored. They merely continued sending the same message. Security has directed that we ignore all of these messages. Comms messages from them have been blocked.
Good, isn't it?
No, sir, we are still getting the messages.
Both of them fell silent, unable to grasp the relentless communications from this unknown source, which is connected to Justin. Why was Justin the target? And why now?
I think it's time we seek our friends in the UNE to find out.
I am here, Sunitha.
The communication was directly embedded in Sunitha's mind. She received the message and did not show any outward emotions. She was in her assigned room and had prepared herself to meet Justin at the receiving hall of her dormitory.
Yes, Justin. I shall be with you shortly.
Justin walked into the hall and moved to a table with 2 chairs arranged against a windowed wall looking out to the forest. It was perfect. He moved to the table and waited.
Hello, Justin.
Sunitha was standing next to the seated Justin. He showed her the chair opposite him, and she moved to sit.
How are you feeling now, Sunitha?
She leaned back in her chair, her tiny frame hunched forward, and looked at Justin and smiled.
I am fine, Justin.
He knew she wasn't. All the time, involuntary muscle spasms did not go unnoticed. Justin saw it all. It further reinforced his suspicions that all was not well with Sunitha. He resolved that he would do everything within his means to help her, but he knew her current unhappiness was the feeling of abandonment. He had to address this before she could move on and accept her situation. He stood up, went to the food dispensers and brought beverages for Sunitha and himself. It was his way of providing comfort and trust for what Justin was about to assist with.
Go ahead, Sunitha. Drink your juice.
She nodded and reached out for the juice, which she enjoyed. Justin took the opportunity to communicate directly within her mind, but using that to also use his ability to dig deeper into her neural pathways to try and find clues and trigger points that would allow him to confirm his initial suspicions. He continued communicating with Sunitha on a subject that interests her, whilst his main focus was going deeper into her neural pathways. Her pathways were clean and clear. Whatever she had communicated to Justin was what she wanted to convey. No other unrecognized processes were occurring in Sunitha's mind. That, however, was not an indication that all was fine with Sunitha. Justin began probing into Sunitha's cortex and lobes. Justin suddenly pulled back and reacted strongly as if he had suffered a mild power shock.
Justin, do not go there.
I want to. What are you hiding?
This.
He felt the full fury from Sunitha as she unleashed all her anger and repressed feelings that she had hidden from everyone, something she had been holding back since her parents had discussed openly sending her to the guild. She resented the lack of respect the parents had for her, as she was right in front of them throughout the period. They were discussing the move without any regard for her feelings. Justin fell back into his chair with force. The chair teetered backward, and he managed to pull himself forward and avoid falling back. He was not surprised at the intensity of the pushback from Sunitha. He knew she had all these repressed emotions and was looking to release them. She immediately broke down. She leaned forward into her crossed arms that were on the table and buried her head while sobbing. Justin pulled his chair next to her and had his right hand over her back. He could feel her tiny body quivering due to her sobbing.
It's all right, Sunitha. Let it out.
His communication to her this time had no other probe incorporated. He somehow knew she was holding back. In fact, he also felt the entire batch of children that arrived with her would have similar repressed feelings. Justin felt that Sunita's emotions were the strongest.
How could they treat me like a mistake, a burden, without truly understanding me? They thought that I didn't know what they were doing. I told them how I felt, but they didn't listen. They ignored me.
This was something that Justin heard regularly from people like him. It had not changed. The insistence to roll over those that they do not understand, and worse, using themselves as a benchmark to gauge these evolved individuals' behavior. The Guild thankfully understood this and had left them to do what was natural to them, whilst employing very comprehensive surveillance, all due to the insistence of Mr. Pang. They were safe with Mr. Pang and his team, but breaking through the initial shock always begins with episodes like these. The understanding was progressing, but it had a difficult time catching up with the increase in individuals like Justin. Initiatives were being undertaken by other organs of the UNE, notably the AI community led by the team at the Lunar Labs. Justin had been following the results of their activities, especially with the use of the Sentinels. But for Sunitha, reinforcement and support for her would be his priority. The danger of not addressing these repressed emotions is great. It could manifest itself in destructive behavior and, worse, be used against other humans.
I need help with this, as the team is not sufficient. I will communicate with the lunar team after I have sorted out this batch and informed Mr. Pang.
The Sun Yat-sen Lunar Research Laboratory, Science Corp, UNE Lunar, Earth Orbit.
Dr. Mong now had some time to himself, after the chaos that ensued during the assembly of the Sentinel team with Lalitha as the lead. She was an amazing and intelligent individual, and had met soon after returning from the aborted Sentinel mission. They had spent some time together, but she opted to leave as the Sentinel research had not presented her with enough challenge to stay. Mong did his best to convince her to stay, but she had accepted a position on Ganymede and was all fired up to leave. They spent time together and spoke about keeping their relationship even though the distance was prohibitive, but pretended that it didn't matter. Mong and Lalitha knew that this would be their farewell. The time to leave eventually arrived as the launch window to Jupiter opened. Mong was now alone and spent his time burying deep into the Sentinel and mapping the architecture for the data download into specific human receptors. It was excruciatingly challenging, but he understood the necessity of expediting this work as the Singularity's progress increased. The focus on the receptors encroached on the area, which was also valuable to Pang and his team. The mapping was key, as it enabled tagging the specific layout and pathways in the manner in which data is moved and processed. This was key in matching the surveillance data that Pang had on the evolved humans. It was their index. Mong had worked closely with Pang on this. Constant data sharing was paramount in this plan.
Pang, are we ready for the data exchange?
Hold on, Mong. Let me assemble my pack. A bit disorganized now. We have a new batch that arrived yesterday. Let's hope we have progress.
How is Justin?
He's progressing. He is stable, and we have noted some degree of independence from him. Very astute from the data we have gathered. I think my team has included that in our data pack, which, oddly enough, someone or something has been requesting the same thing.
What, someone's been asking you too?
You've received the request as well?
Mong nodded on the vidcom. That caught Pang by surprise.
Same message. Let me send you ours. Here it is.
Well, it's not the same, but I think whoever this is, they are after the same thing.
Curious, any luck with tracing the source of the inquiry?
Well, we are at the UNE listening station. We pulled in some favors, and we have a probable location.
And that is?
Mong was quiet, but gathered himself and responded.
Ganymede.
The end of Ascension Part 1.